Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching PHTV4, and this is Around Palos, and today we are at the McCord Gallery and Cultural Center in Palos Park, and they have a special exhibit coming up this March, and we have a chance to talk with one of the artists who will have work on display. This March, the McCord Gallery and Cultural Center will be displaying titled exhibit, Veterans Experience Through Art, and we have a couple pieces around us now. We get to talk to the artists and meet them. Steve Kost, right? Thank you for coming in today. You know, before we talk about your art, maybe if you could introduce yourself, your background in the service, you know, which branch did you serve in, what did you do?
Sure. I was a Navy CB, which is actually construction battalion, the letters C and B. At 17 years old, I left home, I joined the Navy, and I had some welding experience from high school, so I applied that to a career as a welder and earned my way into the Navy CBs. So it's a small unit, land-based. I was never on a ship. And matter of fact, I like to tell people the only ship I was ever on was sinking. It was a training ship I was on for one exercise, and I decided right then and there I didn't want to be on a ship. So I was very happy to wind up in the Navy Seabees, and I loved it. I spent 4 years there traveling the world, and I got home at 21 years old and began my career as an iron worker here in Chicago.
Well, congratulations on that career and that path to ironwork. But I'm going to ask you to kind of clarify just a little bit. So in the Navy, only on a boat in a training exercise, and I think we think of construction building like, well, that must be a pretty safe deal. They're sending you in to build stuff, and I imagine at times it probably is not as dangerous. But can you talk about your experience a little bit? What was it like going into certain places? Did you ever have to deal with combat situations?
I did, and you're right. Construction in itself can be a dangerous place. It's a hostile environment. We're fighting things and trying to make them stand up straight and true. And as a CB, I learned a lot of the same skills that I use today here on the job sites in Chicago. During one of my deployments, we were getting ready to go out to Guam in the Pacific, and they asked us to disembark off the airplane, go back to the base, and we got all ready and mounted out and went to Mogadishu, Somalia. And we were the first ones there. That was December of 1992. And we rebuilt the runway, repaired everything out in town, and did as much as we could to get everything ready for the United Nations that were coming afterwards. So a lot of those same skills that I had learned in the Seabees, with the Seabees, I started to apply there and began to fulfill the mission.
And obviously a potentially very dangerous environment still, even though you're building, you know, working on a runway or heading into an area.
Yeah, you're right about that. And you know what, unfortunately, sometimes things were flying through the air and things were going on that unfortunately I didn't deal with them in a very healthy way at the time. I kind of put them away in the back of my mind. I focused on the job, and when I got out of the military a few years later, I came home, started my family and my career, but I didn't realize just how much that affected me in my daily life. And I'm happy to say now that I did find a way to actually deal with that and to start creating and to start dealing with it in a positive way.
I was going to say, so yeah, that's a great lead, and you'd almost think we rehearsed this, that was going to be the segue for the inspiration for the art then. So you had your military experience, you get out of the Navy, yes, and you return home, but to just go on as business as usual or like normal, whatever that looks like, that's not so easy. Can you talk about, you know, that push that's like kind of sent you into art? How did you get started, and how, I know ultimately it turned out to be a really good thing for you. How did that develop for you?
It's not a traditional path. I didn't do things. I don't have an education in art. Like I said, I'm a welder and an iron worker. And unfortunately, some of the events that I went through with my combat experience left me a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of nightmares, a lot of issues with security. And I'm hypervigilant, so I would hear things in the house that I had moved into, and I thought for sure somebody was breaking in, you know, and danger to my family. So I would patrol the house late at night, make sure everything was all right. And 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, found myself in the basement of the house, actually walking back and forth, trying to wait for time to go by so I could leave for my day job. During one of these sleepless nights, I actually had a typewriter that I took out, put it on the workbench, and I wanted to see what makes this thing work. So I dismantled the typewriter, separated all the parts on the bench. A few nights later, when it happened again, I started to bolt them together using fasteners that I found. And that's kind of how it all began for me, was putting those things together. I found myself not having to think about why I was awake and what I was dealing with. So it turned out to be something that occupied my time, occupied my hands, and especially my mind.
I say, what an incredible transition from the stress and, anxiety and the mental battle you were dealing with, and then finding it out for, it sounds like quite unintentionally, right? That's not the path. If you talk to a counselor, the psychologist, they're not going to go find some metal and take it apart, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. And you know what? I realized afterwards that I had friends coming by the house and family saying how much they liked these things that I was making. I applied for a grant and I bought a welder. So I use a small 110 stick welder in my work and a cutoff wheel on a grinder, a 4-inch angle grinder to cut. So most of my work is actually, I pick it up, it's in the same condition that I found it in the junkyard or found it in buckets of donated materials. So it's actually nice to be able to develop this talent and this ability to see things and recognize what they want to be.
Yeah. Well, and I want to ask you about that. Maybe we'll get to that in a second, like how you end up seeing a fish out of a bunch of, parts, especially these kind of parts. I'm going to have to ask, so you mentioned the first thing was a typewriter. You have a bunch of pieces on display here. Is the typewriter showing up in any of them?
It is actually, that's a very special memory for me. I remember that first typewriter I took apart, and I used the pieces to create a bumblebee, and the legs of the bee were the keys that actually were the typewriter keys. And I have another piece here at this event, and it's a seahorse, and the back of the typewriter frame where all those keys struck and created the type. I used that piece, so I really wanted to have something special for this since it's such a close to home event for me.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a great. I like talking about the inspiration for that, because that's going to be my question. If we could talk about a couple pieces of art here, how you collect these pieces. It sounds like people sometimes donate them, drop them off at your door for you.
Yeah.
And then how what leads you from that collection of stuff to this kind of vision or creation?
Yeah, it's a different journey every time. I can honestly say that most times it starts with picking up a piece and realizing, well, this looks like the face of a fish or an eye. And in the case of this fish right here, the front of it was 2 pieces of channel that came together and formed a mouth, and it kind of built from there. I like to study symmetry and the right proportions in my work. So I work hard to make sure that everything is properly sized. We don't want an oversized eyeball or a tail that's way too big for what it is. And then the other part of the work is that a lot of these materials are secondhand. They're reclaimed materials, or things that are no longer functioning, so they're kind of junk. So a lot of times we have different materials: stainless steel, brass, aluminum. I always tell people if I can stick a magnet to it, I can weld it. But there's times when I have to incorporate and keep trapping things inside of there, different ways to secure different pieces in there.
You said something that, and I want to talk about the calf and the foot there in a second, but you talked about these are secondhand pieces, or they're kind of partial or broken or whatever. I mean, can you talk about how the art is related to, your trip to health, mental health, and also maybe related to the experience of being a vet?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And you know what? I call my artwork mental health artwork because for me, my personal journey from those nights of anguish and not being able to sleep, I found solace and I found the healing power of art. And it took me a few years to do that on my own without sharing with everybody. And in 2018, I had my first art show here in Chicago in the Pilsen neighborhood. It was put on by a veteran group called Chicago Veterans. And they invited me to take part in that show. And I remember standing at the bottom of these stairs looking up towards the venue and thinking, I made this metal crab out of old pliers and channel locks, and I'm pretty sure if I get up there, someone's going to tell me that, number one, I'm not an artist, and number two, this isn't art. But you can imagine my surprise. I found acceptance, and I found something wonderful in that room, and it stayed with me. And actually wound up being one of the greatest nights of my life. They put it on a pedestal near the front entrance to the venue, and I got to watch people all night long take pictures of it, touch it, come and ask me questions about it. And you know what? Really, at the end of the day, we're humans. Our basic emotion is, I made this thing. Do you love it? Do you like it? Because that makes me feel good when people enjoy what I did. Yeah. And that's the real commodity, is knowing that other people are enjoying what you created. You know, you spend time doing something for yourself, and eventually it winds up, people can see it and really enjoy it.
Yeah, something about this or that piece of art or any of your other pieces, it touches their soul in some way too, right? You know, and I'm going to ask you to speak a little bit about, what about like recycled parts or pulling pieces together? I mean, how is that related to the experience or your journey in some way, would you say, or for vets in general?
It certainly, it's a big part of it. And I think that by upcycling and reusing older parts, we talk about things that are no longer functioning, or they're broken, they're not functioning properly. And a lot of people who have combat experiences might feel that inside, that there's something wrong, there's something I'm lacking, I'm not able to deal with these things on my own. And hopefully they go out and they seek help and find a way to overcome those. I know for a long time I was afraid to do that, and when I finally did get help with the VA, I found a really welcoming and a great environment for me to actually help to understand what I was going through. And so a lot of the pieces that I use are upcycled and reused pieces. This piece is called Achilles' Heel, and it was shown at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. in 2022. It all started with this hinge right here, which is a hinge off of a garage door. And
it look familiar.
Yeah, it does.
I see the roller there, or where the roller would be to lubricate that.
You're right. And a lot of the pieces that I gathered on job sites, I've got some pieces I took out of a garage door opener in here, and also some sewing machine parts, a lot of fasteners that create the toes and the tarsals here on the bottom of it. As I said before, I'm not a trained sculptor. I don't have a degree in art, but I have a cell phone, and I studied, in this case, I studied a lot of Greek and Roman architecture, a lot of the stone carvings, to try to get to replicate the human form. And also in a lot of my pieces, I like to leave a little bit of implied movement. So as the heel's off the ground, it's starting to move. The fish is swimming. There's a lot there that I put into thought, and as I've gotten better and developed my talent, I really enjoy putting those little pieces together like that.
Okay. Congratulations, because it is an amazing piece. I do have to ask, maybe you did say it, do we have a title for the one in front of us?
Yeah, it's called Current Events.
Yeah. Do you want
to? Not so much anything political, just everything that we're becoming a nation of consumers, and we have a lot of information being piped into our cell phones constantly. But one thing I always like to point out with fish and with my seahorses is that the structure, the underwater structure, it's always flowing. They're always swimming into the current, and that's why I came with the name Current Events.
Okay. Oh, nice. All right. Well, Steve, thank you very much for, kind of this tour through your art, and again, thank you for your service. Congratulations on your journey to a better place for yourself and your family, I'm sure. It seems like this is a wonderful outlet and experience for you, and you're producing something, like you said earlier, other people like too.
Very much, and I think that this space here at McCord Gallery, the opportunity to take part in a show like this with other veterans, really speaks to the practice of artwork and the healing power that it provides for us. So I'm happy to be here sharing my work, and I know a lot of these other veterans are friends of mine, people I've been in other shows with, and I really encourage everybody to come out and enjoy the artwork that all these people have put together.
I don't think I could have said it any better. Definitely come out, check out the artwork, the veterans experience through art, and you're going to get to see some sculptures, but also a wide variety of other art forms. And I thank you very much for taking the time. Good luck with your future creations, and I look forward to seeing what else gets fit together.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dave Worsley. You've been watching PHTV4 around Palos. We're at the McCord Gallery and Cultural Center in Palos Park. We've been talking with artist Steve Kost. Thank you for watching.